You are now listening to the Q&E Podcast.
Is this what you want? Huh? Is this what you want? Well, come and get it, goddammit!
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Q&E Podcast, and you're here with your boy Q Hicks right now. And I got Edgar on the other line. Edgar, tell the people what's good.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Q&E Podcast. Today, we are reviewing Candyman. This is the 2021 version. This is the follow-up movie to the classic made in 1992, starring Tony Todd. And this one was very, very good. Jordan Peele did an excellent job with the production and the co-directing. I forgot who the director of this one was.
Nia
Her
Decosta.
name was Nia Decosta. Yeah, Nia Decosta. Yeah, first Black woman I think to ever put out like a number one box office movie as a director, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know about that
shout
one.
out to
I know
her.
it made a lot of money. 22 million I seen yesterday in the first weekend. So
It might have been for horror movies then, because they said she was the first to do something as far as like box office was concerned.
yeah. And shout out to her, man. This movie was great. I loved how they tied in like the history of Candyman with the new Candyman. So you learned about other Candymans while you were watching this one. Because coming into the movie, like I went with my family and my sister didn't watch the movie. So I was like, man, I don't know how much they were going to play on the old film and this film. Because I had a feeling that the Anthony that was in the first movie was going to be the Anthony that we ended up finding out was the Anthony in this movie. So I was like, I wonder how much they were going to play on that. So how much did you have to watch the old movie to understand what was going on here? But the fact that they were like flashing back to what happened in the past, but still giving you that information so you can keep up with what's going on so you wouldn't be lost when we continue through this journey with this Candyman was brilliant, bro. So I definitely give Nia Decosta a lot of credit for that.
I definitely agree. I love the fact that they pulled so much from the first one without giving too much of like a flashback vibe. Like it's kind of like you had to see the first one, but if you didn't, it's okay because they're gonna like catch you up.
They gave you the gist. They gave you the gist.
Yeah,
a lot of stories. They gave you the gist. They told you about Helen Lyle and how she ended up saving Anthony the baby from the Candyman. Like they gave you the gist of what happened in the first movie. They didn't go through the first part, but it was enough for you to understand. Okay, I got you. So I can continue with the plot. Oh, that's where he came from. That's where the baby came from. It made a lot of sense.
But you see how like over time how history like twists like certain stories and things like that, because the story that William, the laundromat dude, that he told Anthony in the movie about Helen Lyle in the beginning, it made it sound like Helen was like a possessed woman.
She was the crazy person, yeah.
Yeah, like she was the crazy person. So I thought that was interesting. And then the whole premise of Candyman, what was Candyman's real name? Robadiah. I think Robadiah was his last name. Like with the way like Black history was going, how he was a Black painter and stuff like that, and like they put Black history into it. I'm saying I thought that was cool, like with the Daniel Robadiah story. And then, like you said, there were other Candymans. There were like various Candymans throughout the history of time. So I thought that was cool, but I thought it was cool also how they put it into a Black history perspective.
Yeah, and I like what they did with the laundromat person and how we see at the end that he was like I don't know what you would call his role, but he ended up working with, I felt like with Candyman, he was like damn near in cahoots, because as a kid, he was somebody who seen the fear in the eyes of Candyman. So it was like a connection from a young age. So even though Candyman killed his sisters, even though he's seen what Candyman has done throughout the years, he was somebody who always continued to, I guess, feed Candyman more and more people to become hosts for the Candyman moving forward. So I like what they did with his character, because that's something that we didn't see in the first movie. So it gave you a twist, because he made you, it was really like a what did they call it, bruh? An unreliable narrator, because he gives you so many lies and he makes you believe what he wants you to believe. But a lot of the shit that he's saying is not factual, but he gives you the feel of a historian. He's telling you the truth, like he's been here the whole time, when really he's just working with Candyman, trying to feed him more and more hosts. So I like what they did with his character.
I did too, because I didn't see that coming. I didn't think he was gonna necessarily be like a good guy throughout the movie. I thought he was just
I thought he was just an old man who was just around.
Yeah. I thought he was just an old head that just knew the history but just stayed out the way. But he actually played a huge part around the end of the movie. But one of the biggest things that I pulled from this movie, bro, there's going to be another one. And I think it's because of the fact they didn't dive into Anthony's girlfriend, Bree. They didn't dive into her dad's story enough. And I feel like
I told my mom. That's what I told my mom, because by the end of the movie, I was just like, what happened to her dad? I didn't even know that scene that we ended up seeing with her dad falling off a cliff, or not falling off the cliff, but falling out of the window. Like he jumped out of the window. That was her dad in that scene. I didn't know because they didn't tell you that that was her and that was her dad. So I was just like, what was that scene about? Like, I didn't know what it was, but my mom ended up telling me after the movie, like that was her as a child and that was her father, because you see that they were alluding to it throughout the movie. Like, yeah, we know your history with your father and this, that, and the third. I'm just like, what happened to her father? Like, I was confused after the movie, but after it was explained, I was like,
her brother was telling her the same thing. Like her brother was saying something about going back to where dad used to take you, or like used to have you, or some shit like that. And I'm like, they keep mentioning her father, and then once the movie was over, I'm like, that was a huge plot hole that they just never filled. So I'm like, there definitely is going to be another one. So I don't know if they will play with that though, because since they gave you that scene, I guess that was enough for just giving you that scene of her father jumping out of the window. That was enough to see that he was possessed, I guess, because you see that he was a painter, you see that he was an artist, because you seen that who said it, bro? That everybody, it was the one, the critic. It said that artists always come to the hood because they can actually build up their brand. It's cheap housing, this, that, and the third. I wonder if a lot of artists end up coming to Cabrini Green when they try to redo houses, and that's how the Candyman ends up capturing you. And when you try to dig deeper into Cabrini Green and the history, is that when you become captured and become a new host. I think that was like the cycle for a long time. Yeah, but just to give a synopsis real quick, since you're bringing up Cabrini Green, in present day, a decade after the last of the Cabrini Green towers were torn down, Anthony and his partner move into a loft in a now gentrified Cabrini. A chance encounter with an old timer exposes Anthony to the true story behind Candyman. Anxious to use these macabre details in the studio as his gist for painting, he unknowingly opens a door to a complex past that unravels his own sanity and unleashes a terrifying wave of violence. So Anthony is basically taking on, like, this movie is about him taking on the new persona of Candyman.
Yeah, it basically was. And how he it was kind of crazy how they did it, because in the past movies, I really thought that Candyman was one person. I didn't know it was like a host type of deal where the one person like embodies himself in a person, because that's what we ended up seeing throughout the movie. You see that it's the same person that we seen from the beginning. He was in everybody else's situation and everybody else's Candyman story. I'm just like, oh, so it's only one Candyman, but he embodies himself in other hosts. I never knew that about the Candyman. In the first one, it was never like that. It was just only one.
And that's why when William was talking to Anthony about it, he was like, Candyman ain't just one person, it's the whole hive. And at first I'm like, I ain't get that, but now that, like how you just said, like it basically shows you it could be any host whenever he's ready to switch or transcend into a different person. Like it could be whoever, and it is an entire hive at that point.
Because you've seen it at the end when he ended up killing the cop. You see that the character Anthony ends up turning into Sherman. So I'm like, oh, I understand it now.
Yeah.
But going back to your point about it not being, or it being a third one, I don't think it will be, because I don't know how they would do with it. Because we got the end scene with the black girl named Tiana Paris. What's her name? With Bree. We got the end scene with Bree, and we see that Candyman tells her to tell everybody. So he wants her to be the new person from the laundromat, the person that is telling everybody to become the host of Candyman, basically. But I don't know if that should be another movie, since we already understand how that works now, since we already know how that laundromat person did with Anthony. Why would you do it again with Bree and the Candyman? Like, we already know how that relationship works.
But that's why I think they can make another one, because maybe she won't try to go down that path. Maybe she won't take on the role that William had of basically being Candyman's assistant, because Candyman, since it's basically Anthony in the role of Candyman at this point. She's the one who said Candyman in the mirror, and he didn't kill her at the end of the movie. So obviously, it's like I don't think he ever is going to kill her. So she
only said it 4 times. She only said it 4 times.
She did.
She only said it 4. Yeah, bro.
The cop said it the 5th time though.
She didn't say it, but you have to say it though. Oh. If somebody else says Candyman, you can't say it. It has to be you have to say it 5 times. If somebody else says it the 5th time, it doesn't count. So she only said it 4 times, so it came out and got him. Because it probably got him because he's the one who said the last one. That could have been the reason.
But that, I don't know. I feel like that's flawed. That's flawed. If that's how it happened, that's flawed.
Because, bro, I told my mom, bro, I was like, man, I didn't know if Candyman just killed white people, because in this movie and even in the past movies, I don't remember him killing a black family, but I remember the scene about him killing the laundromat. What's his name? I don't want to keep saying the laundromat dude.
William.
We see that he killed William's sister and her friend. So I'm like, oh, he kills more than just white people. He kills black people too, but you have to say it 5 times in the mirror. Usually black people aren't dumb enough to actually say that shit 5 times in the mirror, but his sister was just that curious and he has that close experience with that situation. But I didn't know until the end if that was true or not.
Yeah, and another big plot point in this movie, I thought it was interesting, like his mom, like they never like showed him going back to his mom at all or anything. So do you feel like his mom knew? And that's another thing I want to get on. In the first one, how was Anthony just chosen? In this one, they kind of made it sound like the baby was, before we found out it was Anthony. For anybody who didn't see the first one, it just sounded like Candyman seen this baby and just chose it to be the next host. And it's like his mom just had to live with that.
Yeah, I forgot what the connection was with him and the baby. I know he wanted him to be the next embodiment. He wanted to actually kill the baby. He didn't want it to actually be anything else, but we see that Helen was the one who ended up getting burned. But I forgot what the actual connection was, but she knew that it was going to come back for him. And she never told him where he actually grew up. And that was the real problem, because you telling me I'm from this side of Chicago when I'm really from Cabrini Green, and you ain't telling me nothing about my history with Candyman. And I'm wondering why this nigga coming after me when me and him actually have a connection and he wanted me back in the day. Like, so this shit was already written in stone. He just wanted me to get into this area. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you didn't tell me anything. You really let me walk into, like, uncharted territory.
Because the whole time as he was slowly turning into Candyman, I was like, okay, he's the one that said it in the mirror. Bree didn't say it around the beginning of the movie when he was saying it into the mirror. So I'm like, why is it like, I'm thinking it's going to be a movie where he's turning into him, but Candyman is also trying to kill him at the same time. Candyman was never trying to kill him at all in this movie. It's like he was just slowly becoming the next one. So I think that's what confused me.
Which made me question if him saying it 5 times really mattered, because he got bit by the bee. I think that was the biggest thing to turning him actually into Candyman. It was the bee sting in Cabrini Green, and we know that Candyman has a hive, so maybe one of the bees was a part of the Candyman's hive, and that's how he actually became the Candyman. I don't know if him actually saying it 5 times actually made an impact on him actually transitioning into being him. I don't even know if that shit mattered for real.
But that was the only thing that aggravated me about the movie. Like, other than that, I damn near thought the movie was flawless. It's the fact that as the bite continued to get worse, he never went to the hospital or got it treated. He just act like it was normal and just like
he did go to the hospital, bro. But they didn't do anything. Yes, bro. He went to the hospital for he was in the hospital because he was talking to somebody in the hospital, bro. Fuck. I don't forget what scene it was.
I swear I don't remember him going to the hospital, because like the whole time I'm telling Denisha, like, as I see his hand get worse and worse, and I'm like, is nobody gonna tell him to go to the doctor? Nobody.
But what could they have done?
Back? Like, even if you went to, I don't know, shit, something like go to the hospital, do something, because clearly you're infected and it's like literally decaying your body.
I feel like he went to the hospital. I don't know if I'm blanking on a scene or not, but I feel like he went.
I remember he wrapped his hand up on his own. I remember he did that on his own because he peeled the scab at that white lady house, at the art lady who was ranking his art and all that. When he went to her apartment, he was trying to peel his scab and ended up peeling his flesh, and he wrapped it himself. He didn't go to the hospital for that. So
I guess he didn't then. And I'm blanking on that.
That's the only thing I was confused on. I was like, why aren't you trying to get help with this? Like, your body is decaying. Like, why does
yeah, that shit was definitely crazy, bro. That nigga was having like holes in the side of his face and all that. So you could tell that he's not the same person that he was at the beginning of this movie. Like, he's definitely transitioning. And it's funny because the girl ended up leaving him at such a sensitive and vulnerable time. It's like, I think she ended up seeing like his hand was decaying, but I feel like she's seeing like his body too, because it was coming up the side of his body, like the honeycomb type shapes were coming up on the side of his body. Like, you not seeing that? Like, I feel like she would have said something about that, but she was like around with her brother house or something.
And it's crazy because I love how, once again, like playing on the whole Black history thing and the way artists move to the hood and to the projects to, heighten their artistry or whatever. I thought it was cool how when he started actually painting his pain in the portraits of the different faces of Candyman, like, it just got ignored. Like, nobody paid attention when he started actually writing true art. Like, when they was telling him to do it, they was telling him to just like make some cliche type shit. But when he started actually making true pain art, nobody paid attention.
Yeah, because everybody was getting on his head. Like, the brother was like, you got to get a job. You got to pick up a paintbrush, this, that, the third. And when I actually paint something that I'm connected to, y'all niggas saying, no, this ain't it. Because I was so happy that old boy got killed from the art center. Him and his girl ended up getting killed. Yeah. I'm like, them niggas deserve to die. Y'all niggas was talking shit about my man. Y'all deserve to die. No bullshit, my nigga. And I was glad the critic died too. Everybody was talking shit, so I felt like whoever was talking shit for real was the ones that died about my nigga. I was like, yeah, y'all deserve it, bro. And one more thing I wanted to talk about was that one scene where we get to the church after Brianna ends up finding where Anthony was, and we see that he's looking at the wall. He really doesn't know what's going on. And we see that that's when Burke ends up going into the story of how he found out that Sherman, who he ended up seeing as a kid, he seen him come back as Sherman, as Candyman, and he ended up killing his sister. But that's when he really became his assistant. But we end up seeing that in his fugue state, he ended up cutting off Anthony's arm and saying that, yeah, Candymans, they can all be different, but we're going to keep with the original tradition.
Yeah.
Like, so how did you feel about that shit, bro?
That shit was crazy, bro. Like, I really didn't expect that from him. Like, I really thought he was just going to be, like we said, I thought he was going to be like an OG who just sat to the side and just knew the history, everything. And I thought he'll still be around at the end of the movie and just be in like a head shaking state of like, he done came again and he done strike again.
Yeah, I got another one.
Whole time you're helping the striking. Like,
and the one thing about William Burke, bro, was that even in the beginning, when Anthony goes to discover Cabrini Green, do more research on it, who was the first person he's seen in the actual projects?
William.
It was William Burke. So it's like you see from the beginning that he was always around, and you see that he was like pushed toward Anthony, bro. It's like you didn't connect the dots at the beginning, but at the end it makes sense of, yeah, you was always this nigga assistant just leading this nigga down this path that he ended up going on, bro. So I definitely fuck with what they did with that. And I like how they play with the say my name topic as well. You see how they did the say my name? And it was funny when he ended up saying that after the two people were killed in the art center, he ended up saying like, because it was his art that really drew the attention of a lot of people in there because it caused the death of the two people who ran the art center. So he was like, wow, they're saying my name. Like, they're saying my name. Mm-hmm. And you see that his sister, or Brianna's sister, or Brianna and her brother ended up looking at him like,
they was looking at him like, why are you intrigued by this? Like, two people just got killed. Like,
yeah, but he was so infatuated with his name being said, and you seen that throughout the movie as well. Like, he loved when his name was said in the other killings too. It was the same thing with the critic. They said his name. He was just like, he was building off that. He was feeding off that. He loved the attention that he was getting off it because he was so deprived of it coming in. Like, he was like damn near a starving artist. He wasn't getting the attention. So when they're saying his name, when he's getting attention, and now like it's kind of feeding the Candyman shit too, because it can go both ways. Like you're saying my name as in Anthony, but say my name as in the Candyman, say that shit 5 times too. Yeah. So I like how they played with both of them, man. That shit was fire.
It was the way his eyes were like. Did you see the way his eyes were cloudy when he was watching the news that time? I was like, yeah, he gone. He possessed. It's over. And what was like one of your favorite parts of the movie? Like, was it a killing or? My favorite part was when William was telling Anthony the history of Candyman for real. Like I said, like they put a whole Black history twist on some of this shit, on how we deal with the trauma of gentrification and white supremacy by creating these horror stories to go with it, to like
that's true, and get them out of there.
Yeah, to not desensitize it, but to just get us through the motions of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I fuck with that shit. It would have to be that last scene, bro, or like almost last scene where it was Candyman and he was walking around the police car, and you seen the different faces come up on the car. Like you seen that it was a young boy who was a Candyman, you seen it was an older Candyman, then you seen the original Candyman. That shit was fire. I didn't know they was gonna play it like that and show you like all of the Candymans as well, but that shit was fire, bro, because it showed you that it was more than one person inside of him, bro.
And you hear him talking as he's walking around the car, because the police officer is like, "Who are you?" And he was like, "We are the Hive," and blah, blah, blah. I was like, bro, this shit is hard.
That shit was fire, bro. So I definitely fuck with that shit. And gentrification was a big thing in this film. And I'm glad that they played on that shit. I'm definitely glad they played on that.
Because I like how Bree's brother, Troy, her gay brother, he pointed it out a lot. When Anthony was talking to the art lady, he was pointing it out to her, like, look, if you want to work with me, I need you to understand my art before you just try to get me to paint some shit that you think will sell. So I love how they kept pointing it out throughout the movie.
And I also like that one scene when he was actually in the critic's house, and it was like the shadow scene where he was like in the mirror and he was like actually seeing himself as the host, and he was like, oh shit, and he had the hook on his hand in the mirror. Like I was tripped the fuck out, because I was just like, damn, is this nigga turning already, or is he just seeing this in the mirror? Like was it the actual Candyman just fucking with him? And we see that it was the Candyman just fucking with him, like, hey, you're gonna become me real soon, my nigga. And we see once he opened that scab, he really couldn't go back, because he actually started to like the turn actually started to expedite. So I'm just like, yeah, this nigga is dead.
I really think it's gonna be another one though, bro, because other than Bree's father like giving a more in-depth look to that, I feel like just him becoming Candyman and Bree still being alive, like I feel like they're still gonna play on that some kind of way, whether they go with the route of going on her father's story or just continuing with him in just one more type of horror movie. I feel like it's gonna be another one somehow, some way.
I just don't think it's necessary, being that you pack so much history of Candyman in this film. Like you gave us pictures, you gave us history, and I like what they did at the credit scene. They show you like all the stick figures of everybody's situation and how they got into it. They show you the one about the slave. They show you the one about Sherman getting taken down by all of the white people in the neighborhood. They show you everything at the end credits. So I fuck with that shit too. I just don't think it's necessary, being that you put so much history. If you were going to build off with Anthony's character, I would understand it, but I feel like Anthony is dead. He's just being a host for Candyman. So the connection between Bree and Candyman really shouldn't be there unless you're going to do that assistant shit. But like I said, we already seen it before. So I'm not seeing a connection for further movies without that being a redundant to what this movie was. So I think I think this was good.
It's definitely good. If they end it here, I won't be upset. It's just I feel like there is room for another one, even if the next one doesn't really have a super deep plot. If it's just a regular horror movie, like I wouldn't be surprised if they made another one. But if they ended on a high with this one, I'm straight with that too.
I'm definitely straight with this one, bro, because like I said, the balance that you already did with it showed us so much. Because in the beginning of the movie, I was kind of like, yeah, they're giving us a lot of history, this a lot of story, but then they started to actually split up the the history with actually killing. And then that's what Candyman is known for, like the story and then the history, then the killing. Like I like the way that it was schemed, like and formatted throughout the movie, bro. That shit was great. Then you always in every Candyman movie, there has to be a scene where white girls are in the bathroom doing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Candyman shit. It has to be in every movie. I think it was in the first one too when they did it, and it has to be in every Candyman moving forward, bro. That shit was I fuck with that shit. But unless you're doing a reboot, that's the only thing I would say. If they're doing a reboot like 20 years from now, 15, 20 years, that's a fine. Because how long it's been?
It's been like 20 plus. Actually, no, the first one came out in 92, 30 years. Like
it's been 30 years, bro. And I feel like this was a good time. Like that was a good time. Like we didn't need another Candyman back to back after that Helen situation. And I don't feel like we need another one after this situation. Let it rock for a minute and then we get another one. But I don't think a back-to-back one should be in the works. I ain't really with it. I'm cool with this one. I was happy with it. What would you rate it?
Oh, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. I thought this was a great horror movie. Like I said, the only problem I had with it was the fact that his arm was just decaying and he basically did nothing about it. And no one said anything about it. So other than that, it was fine. It was fine. The horror was good. And my problem with people, like I said this with the Don't Breathe 2 review, it's like people think just because you're not super scared the whole movie that it's not a good horror movie. Like, no, the plot makes perfect sense. It was a great follow-up. The horror was there. It's just, okay, if you just don't scare easily, like there'll never be a good horror movie for you then if you just don't get scared, period. So I thought everything else around the horror was great with the horror.
Yeah. It was definitely good horror. It was my mom was in there screaming and shit, like shit was going crazy. But I definitely fuck with it, and I fuck with that one scene with Brie at the end when she ended up stabbing that nigga William at the end. She started going crazy on that nigga. I was just like, damn, like is you Candyman or you the embodiment? Nigga? Like damn, you going crazy on this nigga, bro. But yeah, I fuck with that shit, man. I fuck with it, man. But I think that's it about the movie though, for real. I'm trying to think of any other scenes I had. Rate, man, I probably would give it like a 9.5. I love this shit, bro. Other than that one plot hole about the dad that I really missed because they were alluding to it so much, like toward the middle and end of the movie. I'm just like, what happened to her dad? Like, and I guess I just missed the shit with the that one scene where he jumped out the window. But other than that, bro, I was kind of caught up with the shit. I like what they did with the kills. I like how they killed the critic. I like how they seen like the dichotomy between the transition and shit like that. I fuck with it, bro.
I think the best kill in the whole movie was when he killed the art critic and he just drug her across the window. That was the best kill to me.
And it's funny how they zoomed out and you just see her face getting ragdolled everywhere. That shit was hilarious, my nigga. That shit was hilarious. Yeah, bro, I definitely fuck with that shit.
But yeah, that's it. Anything else?
Nah, bro, you can hit it with the social media.
All right, you can follow us on Twitter at QE Podcast 1. You can follow us on Instagram at QANDE Podcast. You can follow and like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube at QAnSignE Podcast. And our Gmail is QANDEPodcast@gmail.com.
And you can subscribe to all of our podcast platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Q&E Podcast, and subscribe to my YouTube. Just type in Quincy Hicks into the search bar and definitely subscribe. We appreciate you guys for listening, and we out. Peace.